Along with rereading and recapping these, I'm also going to be annotating them. Bookbabe Designs restocked her website with all of her most popular t-shirt designs. It's something that we've read 1,000 times before. It's even prettier than I thought that it was. No. I'm about to head out for coffee and pastries with a friend, which I'm really excited about. But one thing about me is that I am not leaving the house without a book. Who knows if my friend is going to be late? Who knows if I'm going to break down and have nothing to do? I need to take something to read with me, but I am currently in between books. Now, the good news is that there's a bunch of stuff on my TBR that I'm really excited to read right now. But of those exciting books, I did not know which one you guys most wanted to hear about. So I did put a poll in my Instagram story 20 hours ago now, and there was a clear winner from the start, but there was also an underdog that started to catch up to the book in the lead. I don't think that there's any chance of it overtaking at this point. There are 43 votes separating them. So I do think that we have our winner with only 4 hours left on this poll. So I'm going to be reading Daggermouth by H.M. Wolf. I am a little surprised that this is your guys' pick. This actually works out really well though, because I didn't realize how soon this book is published. So great timing to let you guys know whether you should pick it up when it's traditionally released. But given everything else on there, we had Spark of the Everflame by Penn Cole, very popular, Kissed by the Gods by Katie Rogan, brand new romancy release, and The Unicorn Hunters by Catherine Arden, which is actually what was chasing Daggermouth. I'm the most surprised about that because while I love Catherine Arden, I didn't know how much you guys loved Catherine Arden and cared about my opinion on that one. But Daggermouth is very, very buzzy right now. I think at the beginning of the year, maybe early spring. This one was, I'm assuming, self-published through Amazon, and the girlies were eating it up. For a couple of weeks there, this was the only book that anybody was talking about. So naturally, the publishers took note of that, and it is about to be redistributed by, I'm pretty sure it's Tor, in the last week of June. So all I know about this one is that it is a dystopian romance and that during that very brief period, everybody was obsessed. Now, this book is still available on KU, which is how I currently have access to it. And it says it's Conform meets V for Vendetta. Now, I haven't read Conform. That's by Ariel Sullivan, right? That is also a very popular book that I feel like I want to read at some point soon. But it says that it follows a mercenary who botches the assassination of the president's son and ends up forced to marry him. So that's as far as I'm going to read into the synopsis. There's no point me digging any further because honestly, like I've said, fantastical synopses can go right over my head without context. The best thing for me to do is dive into this one, and when I am a little bit of the way through, give you guys a better idea of what it's about. How long is this though? Is it like 600 pages or something? I feel like it's not small. 562, it's saying on my phone. That's fine, that's doable. I've only really read big books this month, so what's another to add to the stack? As well as diving into Daggermouth this week, I'm also going to be starting my reread of A Court of Thorns and Roses. I'm also going to be making recap videos for every book in this series as I read through them, one per month, leading up to the release of ACOTAR 6 in October. I've made recap videos in the past, so I figured, seeing as I was rereading these anyway for my own personal benefit of being refreshed on the storyline by the time the new books are released, I figured I might as well make recap videos for you guys along the way for those who do not have time or do not wish to reread before the next 2 books in the series. And then if necessary, I may end up rereading Throne of Glass next year as well, but we'll see. I don't know how imperative that's going to be until I pick up the next ACOTAR books. But along with rereading and recapping these, I'm also going to be annotating them. I annotated my first book ever earlier this year, which was my favorite contemporary romance, The Hating Game by Sally Thorne, and I made a whole video on it. I've decided that while I'm going to be annotating my copies of the ACOTAR series, I'm not going to be making annotation videos, mainly because I don't know what it is about annotating that makes people so mad. If you don't like annotating, if you think that it's pointless, if you don't understand why people do it, don't click on an annotation video. Why would you? Why? But so many people I see, not even in the comments of just my videos, although that video did attract a few of these comments, but like other videos on annotation as well, short form content on annotation. I just see so many people like, I read 800 books a week and I've never felt the need to annotate. Why would you do that? Like, babe, if it's not for you, just move along. So I'm not going to be making a video on that this time, especially because I'm already going to be making the recap videos. This isn't the first time that I've reread the series either, but on this particular reread, because I'm annotating, I'm going to be looking at picking out not only bits that I really enjoy, but also things like foreshadowing. I have no like real system with annotating because I have only annotated one book, but I did notice throughout the process of annotating The Hating Game, I got more into it the further into the book that I got, and I was kind of using different techniques, I guess, and also picking out more of the text the further along I got. So I'm really excited to be doing that for one of my favorite series. I really enjoyed the experience of rereading The Hating Game, but also the annotating I feel like made me enjoy the book even more because I'm taking the time to actually physically interact with it a little bit more. So it's more of an, I guess, a sensory experience in a way. And I do also have more than one copy of this series because I have the original hardbacks for the first 4 books. And then I also picked up the Illumicrate dust jackets when A Coat of Silver Flames was released. So I have a second set, which are the ones that technically have the newer covers. I've obviously took them off, that I have displayed with these dust jackets. So this is my second newer set because the original set, you know, they're my babies. They're the ones that I originally read and they are, you know, they're worn, they're well loved. So I'm going to be cracking open the newer ones with less sentimental value. I mean, there is a downside to that in that if I ever did decide to downsize and decided that I didn't need 2 full sets of this series, I actually have more as well because I've got some like collector's editions and random bits of like book 1 and also I think A Coat of Silver Flames. If I did ever decide to downsize my collection, then this is going to be really unhelpful because I'm going to have the original sentimental editions and also the annotated editions. But you know, let's just hope that that day doesn't come. If there comes a day when I have to cull my Sarah J Maas and my Red Rising collection, it's a cry for help. I am up to chapter 12, which is approximately 141 Kindle pages into Daggermouth. And I'm not really sure how I feel about it right now. I feel like it had a really strong start, but the point that I'm up to at the minute, I'm not as invested in it, but it could be me because I feel like I've been reading this book so far in snippets and I haven't yet had the chance to really like sit down and dedicate a solid amount of time to just reading it, which I'm hoping to do some point soon, maybe even tonight. But it is of course a dystopian series, so it is set in a city that is separated into rings. So the center of the city is called the Heart, and that is where the elite live. There's big skyscrapers, lots of excess, you know, the usual. Then there's a ring outside it. I can't remember what that one's called. It might be the Cardinal. And then there's the Boundary, which is the final ring, and that is where the poor people live. Of course. I'm assuming that the central ring, we haven't actually spent any time there yet or met any characters from there, but I think that that's more like the upper working class kind of situation, the people who are not the elite but are maybe useful to the society, and then the Boundary is full of like the assassins, the smugglers, and then just like the general poor people. This is a multi-perspective book as well. I thought it was going to be dual perspective, but we've had some additional perspectives in there that I'm actually really excited about. But our main female character, Shadira, is from the Boundary. She is a Daggermouth, which is essentially an assassin, and she has been given a contract by her boss to kill the heir to the Heart. So he's like the president's son. She willingly and excitingly accepts this contract, not just because she is thrilled at the chance to do some damage to the structure of the society, but also because she has a personal score to settle, because this boy called Grayson is actually a man. He's in his 30s. Sorry, this grown ass man. I feel like it's just a little bit startling to find a man who is like in his, I'm sure that they said that he's like 36, 33 is how old this man is. So he is the executioner for the society, which means that he publicly kills rebels or anybody who breaks the law. And one of the laws in this world is that you can't have relationships between the rings. So when we first meet him in the very first chapter, or potentially even like a prologue of this book, he is killing a man and a woman who have had a romantic relationship with one of them, the man I think from the Boundary, and the woman from the Heart. And reading from his perspective, we know that he has a lot of turmoil surrounding this. He doesn't believe in his father's society. He doesn't enjoy his position as the executioner. And he actually spends his free time smuggling medicine into the Boundary to help the people that live there. And when Shadira gets the contract to kill him, she's excited, not just because obviously it'll deal a great deal of damage to the society, but because she has a personal vendetta against his family because her parents were killed for having a relationship between like the rings of this society. We don't know any of the specifics of that early on. I don't know whether it's going to become relevant. I imagine she will go into it at some point, but essentially she has worked to fight back against the society that took her family from her. And it's very clear that she is a highly skilled and feared assassin in the society. So she goes off on her merry way to assassinate this man. She's very excited about it. And weirdly, everyone wears masks in the society, or at least the elite do. And this is the third romantasy book in a row that I've read where the male main character wears a mask. The first one was Starside, the second one was Anathema, and now we have Daggermouth. But he wears a mask because everyone in the society does. Pretty much a sin to show your face to anybody outside of your immediate family and also like the person that you're married to. So when you get married, it's called the vow, and the sanctity of the vow like protects you from having to wear a mask in front of that person. So when Shadira goes to assassinate Grayson, he takes his mask off because he is obviously a rebel sympathizer, and so he is welcoming this assassination almost. And all of these security guards and his parents burst in and they catch Shadira with a gun to this man's head to try and save the future of this country because Grayson is the last heir. His older brother has died. His parents come up with this plan to marry Shadira and Grayson because if they then enter into the vow after she's seen his face, this is like a little loophole that's been built into the rules to protect people who essentially are accidentally unmasked, and then you end enter into the vow with the person who saw your face, then it protects you from having to be killed. I feel like it's a really silly rule, and it's kind of just like built into the society to create a little bit of extra drama and a driving motivation to force these two to marry each other, because otherwise, like, literally, why would you? And the only reason that Shadira agrees to it is because the president threatens to bomb and kill everybody that she loves if she doesn't, and essentially does the same for Grayson, even though that's literally his own son. So these two end up into a forced marriage together. I am a little concerned for myself in this because we actually have a third player in this romance, because I'm assuming that the romance in here is going to be between Shadira and Grayson, right? But Shadira has been hooking up with this guy from the Boundary called Jameson, who, you know, is pretty good looking and is very clearly in love with her, even though she doesn't necessarily reciprocate his feelings because she doesn't form emotional attachment. She's all about her revenge mission and her job, and less about, you know, building a life and living happily ever after. But he gets all involved when he realizes that Shadira isn't coming back from this assassination that she's been sent on. That's kind of like the foundations of this story. I'm not lukewarm about it. I find the world compelling. I actually like Grayson's perspective more than Shadira's, though. I wonder if that's my issue. I feel like her perspective feels like a very typical perspective in this world, and his perspective is given more insight into the intricacies of the society, which is the most interesting thing to me when it comes to dystopia. And it's like, how is this society different from ours? How is it an extension of ours? Like, what path would we be on as a society to end up in this position? So I am enjoying him a little bit more, but then he also has that tone of like, woe is me, I'm so rich and privileged and I just want to help people, which, I mean, is a great thing. It is a great thing, but it is also like a very common perspective in books like this. So yeah, I this has the potential to win me over still. Just right now where I'm at could go either way. Book Babe Designs restocked her website with all of her most popular t-shirt designs, and so I had to place an order. This is the same place that I got the Brown Bloody Book Club t-shirt. I can't say that. Brown Bloody Book Club t-shirt from that I got, I think, like last September. It's one of her Halloween designs that is currently available. I'll link her website down below. I don't think she said when she's closing because she doesn't always have things available for sale, but right now she has a bunch of t-shirt designs on offer. I did just get 2. I could have got way more, but I do want to keep open the potential for ordering in the future because she added, I think, 4 new designs during this drop, and I anticipate that she's going to be back in the autumn with like more Halloween designs. And I don't want to overdo it, you know, because I do have a habit of sometimes overdoing the things that I enjoy to the point where I don't enjoy them anymore. I did this with the Happy Hello bookmarks, which I don't have them up on my bookshelves anymore because when I took them down to have some work done, I never put them back up. But they were these little like magnetic bookmarks. The artist like on Etsy made them for a ton of different book series. I have hundreds of them to the point where I just had so many that I had no desire to have any more. And I don't want to do that with these t-shirts because I do really love them. I love her artwork. So one of the ones that I picked up is one of her newer designs, one that she's just added, and one is an older one. So the new one I got in brick red. It's really hard as well because when I'm looking at the t-shirts, I always want to pick based on which designs I like the most, but they don't always align to who I am as a reader. So I have to make a choice, like, do I buy it because it looks good, even though like the genre it represents is not necessarily for me. But this one is one that does line up with me. This one is the Fragile Hearts Book Club. At the bottom it says it's okay to cry, and y'all know that I am a big fan of sad books. I really like that the brand of t-shirt that she uses are comfort colors because I find that they sit really nice and they also wash really nice. This one is also available in black, but the other top I got is black. So this one I got in the red and I felt like the colors really popped on the red as well. And then the other one is my favorite design, and this is the instance where the theme of the shirt doesn't necessarily match up with who I am as a reader, which is unfortunate, but I do just really love this design. Raising Hell Readers Club. The bottom says Saddle Up Cowboy. We're headed to the bookstore. I really liked how this one looked. I like the font on it. I like that it has like moon and stars. Unfortunately, I don't read cowboy romance. However, that's not because I don't like it. I've just never read cowboy romance. So if I do decide to get highly invested in the genre, I have a t-shirt that represents it. This one is in the pepper color as well, so it's not a solid black, it's more of like a washed black, and I really liked that vintagey look about it as well. I'm so excited. It's like perfect oversized t-shirt season as well, so these came at just the right time. Saying that though, the weather, it's been overcast and rainy for a couple of weeks now. We had that nice burst of heat at the end of May, which was like a little bit too hot. I'm not a fan of a heat wave, but I was looking forward to some like nice pleasantly warm days throughout June, and honestly since May bank holiday it's pretty much been overcast and rained almost every day, so hopefully the weather will be nice enough for me to wear my new t-shirt soon. I mean, I'll still wear them just over leggings instead of cycling shorts. I am just over halfway through Daggermouth, and I don't think that this book is working out for me. I was immediately immersed when I started it, but shortly after that, I very quickly switched off, and now I'm kind of dipping in and out of like how interested I am in this story, and I've been trying to figure out why throughout the process of reading it that I'm not really connecting with it. I have said before that like dystopian or popular dystopian fiction was not my favorite when it was like the biggest genre that everyone was reading. So I like The Hunger Games, but it's not one of my favorite series of all time. I don't like The Maze Runner. I didn't love Divergent either, but I do like some dystopian. I like 1984 by George Orwell. I also really like the Arc of a Scythe series by Neil Shusterman, which is a utopian, but the majority of utopian societies do end up actually being a dystopian in disguise. And I think what I really like about the dystopian genre is when it has some really clever societal commentary, because that is what the dystopian genre is designed for, right? It is to paint you a bleak picture of society, and dystopia is a subgenre of sci-fi. So within that as well, you also kind of have the caveat that this is like a realistic outcome. This is something that could happen if certain conditions played out. That's kind of how I see sci-fi, because it is rooted in science. And the reason why I like sci-fi horror is because it's legitimately scary due to the fact that like in perfect conditions, this is somewhat plausible. And I think that Daggermouth, to start off with, I felt like it read very much like a lot of other books that I've read before. It read very much like a pretty standard romantasy. I don't think that there is any kind of deep, complex criticism on society in here, apart from like the very basic capitalism is bad, oppressing people is bad. Like I don't think at least at this point where I'm at, it doesn't really run much deeper than that we have a oppressed society in this city, and we have an elite, and we have a rebellion that's rooted within the oppressed society, and a few key members of the elite that are going to try and overturn the current societal structure to achieve equality, which is something that we've read 1,000 times before, not just in dystopia, but also very, very common kind of plot within the fantasy genre as well. And I do think that Daggermouth does read like consistently in line with a lot of like really popular romantasy. Not the best of the genre either is the thing, because I can read a book that doesn't do anything special and still enjoy it. I recently read Starside by Alex Astor, which I know a ton of people have DNF'd. I went into that with super low expectations, and I think because of that I found it to be quite enjoyable because I wasn't really expecting anything from it. But I think with Daggermouth, like it's just been so hyped and so many people have loved it that I've really expected it to do something different, and so far it isn't. But then the more I've got into it, the more I think I know the real reason why I don't like this. And it's because this is essentially a mafia romance repackaged as a dystopian. If you take away the fact that this city that we're currently set in, it's called Newfound Haven, doesn't exist. And I don't really understand how we've got to this point where this society exists. I mean, it's not too different from the society we already live in, just taken to the extreme, I guess, with more segregation. But this isn't like a version of Chicago in the future or something like that, because the only kind of insight we've got on the history of the world so far is that the world as it was ended and Newfound Haven rose in its place. So this is like an entirely new city, could be anywhere in the world. So if you, for example, moved this into Chicago, this would be a mafia romance. And I don't really like mafia romance. And I think that is why I am struggling with this so much. I was wondering if I wasn't kind of connecting with the characters because they were given that element of like fake badassery, you know, like, oh, I'm a big bad Daggermouth. I defeat everyone in my path. I'm assigned the hardest missions and I complete them all. And then you also have, like I said, the heir of this empire who is a member of the elite and incredibly privileged, but he uses his privilege to help people while standing up against his tyrannical father. You could replace the elite in this world, like Grayson's tyrannical father, who's like the president of this society and is ruthless in his pursuit of power. You could replace him with a crime lord. You could replace Grayson with the guy from Nightshade. I can't remember his name, but that is essentially like a dark academia romance with mafia elements, and he like hates his father. He's trying to save his mother and his sister from his father, who is abusive and constantly chooses like the good of his business and his reputation over his family. This is literally the main character and his father of Daggermouth. And then you also have specifically the sister of Grayson, which I'm not super into the romance because I'm assuming that the romance in here is going to be between Shadira and Grayson, and that's the main one that we're following. I don't really care about that, but what I do care about is the romance between Grayson's sister and his best friend. I am eating that up, but it also feels very mafia romance. It feels like Sophie Lark, I think the second book in, is it the Brutal Birthright series with the ballerina who's the sister of the love interest in the first book in that series. And then her love interest, Callum, who's like Grayson's best friend, we meet him very early on in the book, and he essentially runs the entertainment district of the city. He deals in secrets. That's how he keeps people in line. He learns their secrets and then he can hold them over them. And he's like the second most powerful person in the city. Like it's a mafia romance. It is. And I think that is why I'm not currently vibing with it. I do think though, if you like mafia romance, you're probably better suited for this book than I am. So at this point, I'm going to continue. It's the only book that we're talking about for this vlog, so I'm kind of committed to finishing it, especially because it's so hyped. I can't remember when I first saw people reading this, whether anyone said that the end is phenomenal in comparison to the rest of the book. But for me to care about this book at this point, it's going to have to do something spectacular in that last 50%, because the only thing that I'm genuinely invested in is Callum and Lyra. It is Independent Bookshop Week, and it is also a glorious day in the UK today. It actually might be a little bit too warm. It's a little bit muggy, but I've come into York. I'm going to be meeting up with a friend and we are going to be going to the new Toppins that has just opened in York. I have been waiting. It's been open a couple of weeks. I've been waiting for the perfect time to explore, and Independent Bookshop Week seems like the best time, if I'm being honest. And not only is it exciting that we now have a Toppins in the north of England, it is also the largest independent bookshop in the UK. So I'm prepared to have my mind blown. Because it's Independent Bookshop Week, I do want to pick something up, although I don't actually know what I have in mind. There's nothing that I desperately need right now, so I'm just going to kind of explore, see if they've got anything special, see if they've got anything that's kind of been on my want list, and we'll see what I come away with. That Callum and Lyra were the main characters in this series, because I'm so much more invested in their relationship than I am Shadira and Grayson. Even Jameson, actually, who is the guy that Shadira is with before she goes to the heart, who's like very obviously in love with her, and she is very much not reciprocating feelings on that level. I'm more invested in him than I am Shadira and Grayson. Although, to be honest, I do genuinely really like him. He's probably, I don't want to say one of my favorite characters. Realistically, yeah, he probably is, but I don't feel strongly enough about anything in this book to almost declare a favorite character. Something that did surprise me about this one, though, is how multi-perspective it is. I feel like I'm very used to books of this nature being dual perspective, and I'm actually really grateful that we have those extra perspectives, because I'm not even invested in Shadira and Grayson on like a plot level. I think that they are the least interesting characters in this entire book, and while there are very small moments where I feel like they have a little bit of chemistry, I just don't feel like I believe their characters, and I think that that is actually an issue with this book for me. I don't feel anything that's happening. I very much feel like I'm being told everything that's happening, which is kind of keeping the book at arm's length for me. I definitely think this is not what I expected it to be, and it still very much reads like a mafia or a crime romance that's just in like a dystopian society, which is fine. It doesn't make it any less of a dystopian romance, just stylistically it's reading differently than I expected it to. I would say if you're interested in this book, then do look up a full list of content warnings, because if you feel like you may need that, because it is quite dark in some parts. Some content warnings that I can think of that we've had so far off the top of my head are sexual assault, domestic violence, torture, gun violence, bomb threats. So there's a lot going on here, and there are parts of this that have gone a little bit darker than I'm used to in the romance genre as somebody who doesn't really read dark romance. So the mafia romance that I've read before, there's a few that I've DNF'd because I don't believe it. There's just something about mafia and crime family romances that just feel really unrealistic to me, which I guess they're probably not supposed to be the most realistic things, but I have to have like a level of plausibility, and some of them just don't quite sell it for me. But all of the ones that I've actually read and enjoyed, which honestly is only Nightshade, which sucked me in with Dark Academia and just also had some mafia elements, and also the first two books in the Brutal Birthright series by Sophie Lark, and even with those, I actually prefer Sophie Lark's writing style and find it addictive, as opposed to actually caring about the fact that it's a mafia romance and being invested in the romance in that way. So everything that I've read is like more on the light side of mafia romance, and the kind of antagonist that we have in this series is going harder than I expected him to, shall we say. But yeah, I don't think this book is for me. I don't have long to go, so I'm gonna stick it out. I am pretty sure though, if it wasn't for the fact that we were doing like a focused vlog on one book right now, I would have DNF'd this probably about 40% in. I think I went into this with too high expectations as well, because of how much I saw people loving it for that very brief amount of time. It's weird that actually, because there was this burst of hype and then it was traditionally published, but as far as I'm aware, it's still on KU. So you can still read it at any time before its trad pub release, and I haven't heard anybody talking about it since that burst. But I think because I saw this very like small burst of very passionate reviews, I went into this with higher expectations that I maybe should have, and had my expectations been lowered, I maybe would be having a better time with it. But then I also think that because of how enthusiastic people were, I was expecting it to do something really different within the dystopian romantasy genre. I don't feel like it is. I think it's just bringing something that is very well established, like mafia crime romance, into a slightly different genre that's appealing to a slightly different audience that are either already big fans of romance like this or have never read this kind of romance before, and maybe that's why. But I'm just theorizing. I literally don't know. Today I have received a cutie patootie little package from the Broken Binding, I think, of one of my 5-star reads of 2026, which is very exciting. I'm so happy to have a physical copy of this. I read it as an ebook, and honestly it's wild that I loved this as much as I did, which if you'll know me, then you will know why when you see what this is. This glue is like some serious shit. Oh my god, it's even prettier than I thought that it was. The Broken Binding have sent me a hardback proof of The Fall by Ryan Carhill. I've seen the cover of this online already. I just don't feel like pictures do it justice. I actually really like the color palette of this novella with like the mauvey reds, but what I didn't know about this is that it also has gilt edging like the proof copy I have of Blood and Fire. So if you guys don't know what this is a novella, the first novella actually in the Bound and the Broken series by Ryan Carhill, which I received a proof of the first book from the Broken binding, so I've already read that this year. And then the reading order of this series is that in between every core installment you read a novella. This is a series that has already been indie published and it's being republished traditionally. So after I read book one, I decided to jump into this first novella, and I am not generally a fan of novellas. I don't love short things. I like really expansive stories. The longer the better, in my opinion. And generally with novellas, I always feel like I want a little bit more. And this in particular is set in the history of this world. Does it say how long ago it was at the beginning of this? Oh, it's pretty as well. No, it has a year in it, but it doesn't say like how long before the Bound and the Broken it is. But essentially the world was ruled by the Order, which seems like a collaborative effort between the different races of this world, because there used to be like elves, dwarves, giants, all manner of people like sharing this world. And the Order fell because they were betrayed from within their own ranks, and the Empire rose. So in the first book of Blood and Fire, the Empire has been ruling this country for quite some time now, and the Order is like a distant memory. However, there are pockets of resistance which our main character ends up kind of intersecting on his journey throughout A Blood and Fire. And this novella details the fall of the Order. So it's set way back in the past, and it is split into 4 different perspectives and their experience at this specific moment in the fall of the Order. It starts like right in the thick of the action as well, so it's not like leading up to the fall, it's not the political decisions that were made. It starts at the moment that the first strike against the Order hits, and they're dealing like with the chaos and the aftermath. So this really throws you straight into the action. But I just found that all of the perspectives in here were really interesting. I think 3 of the 4 I adored. 1 I wasn't as keen on, but I didn't hate it or anything. It's just the other 3 were like 100 stars for me. So I think the thing that sold me on this was how invested I was in those individual perspectives. And I guess it really interested me in all of the things that kind of like surround this event. Those political machinations, and some of the characters in here came as a shock to me, almost contained plot twists, because some of the characters in A Blood and Fire, like I don't know that much about, so finding out some more information in here was genuinely shocking to me. There are different ways that you can read this series as well. The reading order from Ryan Carhill says if you're like an action-based reader, then start with The Fall, and if you're somebody who likes to know the world and the lore before you dive into the action, which is definitely me, then start with A Blood and Fire and then read The Fall, which I think for me was an amazing decision, because I don't think I would have understood the relevance and the poignancy and been as invested in these perspectives if I didn't have the context of the Empire versus Order situation that we figure out in The Fall. So thank you so much to the Broken Binding for sending this my way. A gorgeous addition to my collection of one of my 5-star reads of 2026, and there's only 6 of them, and 2 of those were rereads. So one of the 4 books that I've read for the first time this year and given 5 stars to. I'm so happy to have this gorgeous edition. No. Okay. So I finished Daggermouth and I really loved the ending. I do not know where this leaves me now regarding this book, whether I'm going to be picking up the sequel, because up until those last 3 chapters, I was like, cool, we're almost done. Can't wait to not have to be here anymore. And those last 2, I think it was the last 2 chapters, maybe the last 3, phenomenal. We had some plot twists a little bit earlier on in this book which were interesting, like they took me by surprise, but they weren't anything kind of outside the realms of possibility, you know. They were things that I've seen done before, but the plot twists in those last couple of chapters, I low-key want to read the sequel. I will say that the end of this book reinforced that Lyra is the best character in this whole book. And, you know, I'm still mad that the main characters that we follow are Shadira and Grayson. I think that that is the bit that I kind of can't move past. The mafia romance of it all kind of tapers off the further you get into the book. And I think actually the further you get into the book, the less it focuses on Shadira and Grayson, and the more that we're bringing in like side character perspectives, which is probably part of the reason why I enjoyed the second half of this a lot more, but especially that last quarter. And up until those last 3 pages, I would say probably the last 20% of the book, we were definitely ramping up the plot. Like we were definitely building up to something, and it was kind of to the point where I was interested to see where it was going, but I was still kind of happy to just leave this world behind until I got to that end. I understand to a degree why people are losing their minds over this book because of how it ended. I feel like if you're having a good time throughout the beginning of this book and you get to that end, I can see why you would give it 5 stars. Now, unfortunately, I did not have a good time up until those last 3 chapters. And you know what? Whether I pick up the sequel, which is called Python, I think the title's just been announced, and I had a quick look, I think earlier today. I'm sure I saw that the release date is the 1st of January next year. So only like 6 months to wait, not too bad. But we're just gonna kind of see how I feel about that sequel at the time that it's released. I'm not going to be purchasing any of the special editions of this book. The Fairy Loot one is very nice, and I do really like the cover art, but you know I would like the cover a lot more if it had the real stars of the show on it, which is Lyra and Callum, instead of Shadira and Grayson. I may pick up, if I decide to read Python and finish out this duology, I may pick up like a paperback down the line or something. In regards to it being a dystopian, I do think we build into that more throughout that second half. I still don't think that the messages that it's putting forward are anything especially thought-provoking or new, but the society is fleshed out a little bit more as the plot builds and as we meet characters and spend more time with characters who are from like the different rings of this society a little bit. You get a little bit more information, but this is definitely something that is focused more on the characters and the plot does also, of course, as you can probably tell, get more dynamic the more you get into it. I wasn't especially enamored with the plot at the beginning of this. As I said earlier in this video, it's very much something that I've seen done 100 times before, but I do think that the execution building towards the end of this book was a lot stronger than the setup of the plot that we had in the initial stages. So I do think that if you're enjoying this book, like if you do give this book a try and you're enjoying it, I think that your enjoyment will grow stronger throughout the entire thing. I don't think that I would recommend it because I think the amount that I had to read for the payoff that I got was not necessarily worth the time that I invested in this book. I am glad though that we had a dynamic ending to this one because it did make me feel kind of better about the fact that I stuck this one out so long. I do feel like the 2 main characters that we're following are a little bit two-dimensional and cookie cutter. They are characters that like I'm kind of familiar with from other series and other franchises, and especially in this book, I don't think they really did anything to stand out. Anything worthwhile that happened in this book was done by somebody else, not our main characters. So I'm assuming that they're going to step to the forefront a little bit in the sequel. Something that I did appreciate about this is that in terms of the romance, we didn't jump into developing that too quickly within this book, shall we say. It leaves kind of like the second half of their relationship, I'm assuming, building towards a happily ever after to play out in the second book, as opposed to us kind of coming to that conclusion in book one and it already being established in book two. But I do also think that there are many more relationships in this book that are much more compelling than theirs. And actually, when it came to points in this book where we were in the main characters' inner monologues and they were talking about how they were maybe feeling about each other or thinking that they felt about each other, I didn't believe it. So I do find it really interesting that there are characters that I really like about this book. I am 100% a Lyra stan. I also think that it's interesting that there were romances that I was very invested in this book, and yet the central characters of this story fell completely flat for me. It doesn't really give me a whole ton of motivation to move on, knowing that they are probably once again going to play a central role in the sequel. I can't imagine them not. They are very much presented as the main characters of this series. All of the promotional imagery that I've seen, all of the special edition covers have them two on as though they are the central focus. And going forward, I would actually really just like a lot less of them. We are going to have a lot more romantic developments with them in book two as well, and I'm not here for it. So I'll see when book two is released where I stand. Honestly, I think that my appreciation for the ending of this book will have died down a lot by the time we get to that release date. But if people are like still hyping it up, if I can get it on Kindle Unlimited, then maybe I'll give it a go. I'm torn on my rating for this one as well, because very much like a 2-star read throughout all of this, and I did feel kind of bad about that. I need to stop feeling bad about giving things 2 stars, because realistically it's my rating. I don't think that this book is terrible. I do think that the two main characters are very, very flat and underwhelming in comparison to the rest of the characters we have in this. But aside from that, I just don't think that this was for me. I think the way that it felt like very much like a mafia romance, a crime family romance, and was like super action packed and was all like guns and surveillance equipment just wasn't my vibe. And I definitely understand why other people would enjoy that more than me. And I think if you're already enjoying that theme, then you're like set up really well to love this book. I felt a little bit bad giving it 2 stars, given that I don't think that the book's terrible, but realistically a 2-star rating for me means that it was fine, and that is like kind of how I feel about it. And maybe it would get an extra star for how much I loved the ending. But there you go. There's my thoughts on Daggermouth. I am sorry to disappoint you guys if you wanted me to love it. I really thought that I was going to enjoy this one, and I'm really disappointed that I didn't. I do feel like when I've been going into videos like this, though, I have ended up really enjoying the hyped book. So, you know, we had to have a flop at some point, really. But if you have enjoyed this one, then please let me know down below. When I'm trying out different vlog formats, it's really important to me that you guys like let me know which ones you're really enjoying, and then I can keep like prioritizing those ones. But if you guys would like to let me know you were here but you don't feel like you have anything to say, leave me a heart emoji in the comments, because that's what's on the cover of this book. And aside from that, guys, please don't forget to like this video if you liked it, and subscribe if you wanna, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Oh, you bite your friend like chocolate. You say you will go where nobody knows, with guns hidden under our petticoats. We're never gonna quit it, no, we're never gonna quit it, no.